and think one of the biggest challenges for moving to Canada is sort of creating that balance where you're trying to hold on to your own identity, but at the same time, you're trying to integrate and you're trying to join into this Canadian community. And so it was very difficult for me to be able to get used to the fact that I don't have some of the luxuries and privileges that a lot of Canadian friends have. And especially for a lot of my siblings, me and my younger brother are very lucky that we were able to get to Canada at a very young age, where we were able to go through high school, university, and the entire standard process. But for my older siblings, where they get to suddenly be put into this life where they're adults and everybody in Canada expects them to live and study and work like adults, but their lives have been so interrupted and they've been so disrupted and never on the same clear path as everybody else. Like, it was never just elementary school, high school, university, and getting a job. And so I think that it's especially difficult for adults who just move into a country where they're so unfamiliar with everything else, but the rest of the world expects them to just catch up and to just start living like everybody else. So I think that one of the biggest difficulties is just the culture shock and trying to get used to life and trying to catch up to everybody else who's been so ahead of you. And you're a step behind everybody else while you're trying to maintain that life and maintain your goals.
Tell me maybe one or two episodes, bad days that you had right after you came to Canada.
One of the difficulties or one of the bad memories would be very related to what I mentioned before, but coming to the realization that I would never be able to lead that sort of standard or quote unquote normal life as everybody else. It always felt like I would have to be one step ahead of everyone else or work harder than everybody else to reach the same level or maintain the same level. And so it's a difficult pill to swallow to know that you're the same age as everybody else. You're just a teenage girl like everybody else. But there's always a barrier that's separating you from other Canadian students and other Canadian teenagers. There'll always be a barrier that just reminds you that life will never be as easy for you and that you will have to work harder. You'll have to reach out. You'll have to work extra hard for things that are just handed to people. And so I think that although that can always be something that is a step back from me, it also acts as motivation. It also acts as something that inspires me and reminds me to work harder. And it's something that it is never something that takes away my motivation. It's not something that just makes me hopeless. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. It's knowing that even though I'm very different, even though that I've come from a very different place, there's something in me that also connects me to everyone here. There's something in me that is similar, and I'm as ambitious. I have big dreams, and in the same way, I'm like everybody else, even though I may be so different.
I would like to know if there's maybe one or two examples that you can give of the hardships that you faced, like concrete examples. Like one day I remember.
I think one of the most solid examples was when I was around in grade 10 or 11, and I was trying to think about my career path and what I wanted to do for university. And I kept asking around for my friends and what they wanted to do and what their plans were. And they seemed so certain in what they wanted to do because either their parents had gone the same career path or they had already, since like grade 9, they'd already planned up their courses and everything else to line up with university requirements. But at that time, I felt so lost and misguided. And so because of that, I was constantly emailing and messaging my school counselor and my teachers and always reaching out to these people. And it was difficult for them because they didn't know much about me and where I come from, and it was so different. But I think that's one of the examples that tells me, because I always have to be the one reaching out and I always have to ask people things, even though it may not come as easy. It's also the misconceptions that people may have about me. And I spoke about this on my TED Talk, but it was an example of when I first came to Canada and I was having a conversation with a group of people that I just met. And one of the girls mentioned being an immigrant, and they were all Canadian born. And one of the other girls started taking that as sort of an insult and saying that she wasn't an immigrant and that why would she call her that, and she's born in Canada. And so for me, being not only a recent immigrant but a refugee, sitting in that circle and hearing them talk about immigration so negatively, it left an impact on me, and it definitely gave me something to think about, to see that these people also come from immigrants. Their parents, their grandparents, the people that come from are also immigrants who are new to this country. But why is it that they see it as such a negative thing? Why is it that it is seen as an insult? Whereas immigration, being an immigrant is supposed to represent strength, is supposed to represent bravery. And so that was one of the moments that I really got to sit down and think about the way people viewed me and a lot of misconceptions a lot of people have. I mean, why is it that these people are viewing me and other immigrants in this way when there's nothing to prove that immigrants were ever anything negative or ever people that were different from everybody else?